and welcome to the Ignorance Project. Today, I'm very excited about kicking off my first podcast of the year with a friend from college.
Yeah.
So, hi, Dr. Brown. How
How
are
are
you?
you? Good, good. It's really nice
Good.
thanks so much for the invitation to be here.
Absolutely. So I really wanted to start this year off with you specifically, honestly, because the focus that the Ignorance Project has this month for Black History Month is Black excellence and Black prosperity specifically.
Okay.
Um, I feel like growing up, and tell me what you think, I feel like growing up, we learned so much about the sorrow behind Black history, the
Hmm.
civil rights movement, and like how we got here, slavery. And of course, that's important. But as I get older, I feel like, why don't we talk more about the success within Black history? So,
Yeah.
yeah, you are Black history.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. It's an honor.
Yeah. So, you want to start off by just talking about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So, my name is Lawrence Brown. I'm originally from California, Northern California, Stockton specifically. And I'm currently in my fifth year of general surgery residency at Johns Hopkins Hospital. In addition to this, I'm currently what's called my academic development time. So I'm pursuing a PhD in the School of Public Health, the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins in clinical investigation. And I have a grant through the NIH to study disparities in deceased organ donation, which is a form of transplant surgery. So it's been a busy road,
Yeah.
and we can leave it there. I'll answer any questions. Yeah,
Yeah. That's insane. So,
it is kind of
I
insane,
want
honestly.
to I want to start with the beginning of your life, really.
Okay,
What made you want to do what you're doing right now?
yeah, that's a good question. So I am the son of a pastor, and
Mhm.
my mom works in early childhood education,
Okay.
and so I think that kind of since growing up, I've always been instilled a principle of wanting to look out for your fellow man, wanting
Mhm.
to kind of give back to your community in whatever way possible, and like a really strong work ethic. My dad is a Jamaican immigrant, and so his family, he came over when he was 9 years old, and they've had to really kind of work hard to get to where they were, and I think that was kind of passed on to me as well.
Mhm.
Specifically, how I got into medicine. I was homeschooled for fifth and sixth grade. And during that time, my dad would take my brother and I with him to the hospital when he visited his church members.
Mhm.
And I was just very, fascinated by these people in white coats who are really like bringing healing to people. And
Right.
you always see the TV shows and things like that. And and I read a lot of books when I was younger, like Ben Carson's books and things like that. And that's another conversation.
Oh,
But
that's one of my the first books I had to read was
yeah,
Think Big.
think big, yeah. And honestly, despite what people think now, I think they were really inspiring at the time, and they kind of pushed me toward pursuing medicine.
Hmm.
Being the son of immigrants, you always think, for an immigrant, you think you have to be a lawyer, pastor, doctor, engineer, that
There's
kind
a
of thing.
select few.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
medicine seemed to make sense.
Mm.
As I, finished high school, I did a program at Loma Linda called MITS, the Minority Introduction to the Health Sciences. And
Okay.
in that program, I also got to see physicians in their space and kind of see how they move and operate. But it wasn't until college, I think, and this is kind of jumping forward a little bit, that I got
Yeah.
to do a lot of shadowing. And in that time, I confirmed my calling to medicine and surgery specifically.
Okay. I think it's interesting because we have a similar background, right?
Yeah,
My dad is also a pastor.
yeah.
One, my parents are both immigrants, my dad from England, my mom from Jamaica.
Hmm.
And when I was a child, I remember seeing Dr. Carson do that surgery,
Hmm.
the groundbreaking surgery with
Yeah.
separating the conjoined twins. And
Hmm.
I would tell my parents, I want to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
It's so much so that my grandmother called me Dr. Carson until her death. Like
Really.
that, yes, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
However, as you see, my life path did not take me down that route, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to pause here for a little bit and talk a little bit more about how your passion was fostered as a
Hmm.
child.
Okay. So I think that my parents were generally this very supportive initially of whatever I wanted to do. My brother and I,
Mm,
they would, buy us the books, buy us the movies, buy different
mhm,
things, kind of
mm,
expose us to things that we're interested in. I didn't see a lot of physicians who looked like me growing up. And I think
Right.
I saw a black dentist in our church, but essentially not that many black physicians. And
Hmm.
so when I wanted to do things like go to Loma Linda to do that program or, spend summers in college, shadowing across the country, my parents were like all for it, and I think
Right.
those were those pivotal moments that they really supported that allowed for it. They supported
Hmm.
financially,
Hmm.
and my dad would drive across country with me to pursue opportunities, and I think those were the things that kind of helped me lead to where I am today. And I'm completely always in debt of my parents and the sacrifice they made for me.
hmm You said a couple more things I want to talk about
Yeah.
because you mentioned that you've got an interest in music. And I remember when we were in college and my brother starting college and coming home one day and saying like, oh, Shreen, there's this guy, you have to hear him play, right? And he said, he's reminds me of Uncle Ken and my uncle Ken Burton. He's done music for the Marvels, like Black
Hmm.
Panther, like
Wow.
he
Yeah.
is an excellent musician.
Yeah.
So I'm there like, oh my gosh, I've got to hear this guy.
Yeah.
He said your name, Lawrence Brown. I'm like, I know. I definitely know who that is. So I
Yeah.
say that to say you are someone with multiple interests and
Hmm.
everything that you do, you seem to excel in, right?
That's what
So
it looks like, but I don't think
that's what
not
you know
always.
what, that's fair. And you know what, as I say that, I also would like to kind of talk about the pressure that you might feel a little bit later
Yeah.
on. But for right
Yeah.
now, you seem to excel in a lot that you do that we
Well, I
see through you.
appreciate it. I
So
appreciate it.
yeah. So what made you decide like between music and medicine that you wanted to pursue medicine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, my interest in music initially was fostered by playing in the church, that kind of thing. But my dad's cousin, his name is Huntley Brown. He
Mm-hmm.
is a international Christian concert pianist,
Mm-hmm.
and he came to Pittsburgh, California, one of the churches my dad pastored at the time. And he played, and I was watching him do his arpeggios and his octaves, and I was like, I want to be like that guy when I get older, And everybody takes piano lessons, and but everybody usually kind of gives up on it. And
Yeah.
similarly, I just kind of practice what I want to practice, and
Yeah.
and so they're like, "Oh, you should do this lesson for this week," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
do that." But really, I'm just gonna learn these hymns and like improvise on them and kind of build my repertoire of things that I'm interested in. And so I did that, growing up, and I played at churches, my dad's church, or other churches in the area. I finished high school at Pine Forge Academy, which is a Black SDA boarding school in Pennsylvania, and I played for the choir there. And then I went to Oakwood, and so I actually started as a biology major initially. So
Mm.
I knew I was interested in medicine, and
And you started
but
at 16.
I well, I started what college?
Yeah, you were
Oh,
16, right?
I was 17 when I started college. Yeah,
17.
'cause
Okay.
I skipped second grade. Yeah, but
Yeah.
and I think it was 17. Yeah, so long ago.
Oh, wow.
But I also told myself this is the last time that I could study music seriously, and so
Mm-hmm.
and I was grateful to have some mentors who said, you can pursue medicine
Mm-hmm.
and not have to be a biology major. So you can just only take the prerequisite courses, you can kind of do what you need to do.
Right.
And so I pursued music. I and majored initially in piano performance, and then ultimately in music composition and recording arts, and then
Mm-hmm.
the prerequisites. Um, I kind of told myself that, and I don't know for better or for worse, that music was something I had a passion for,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want it to be my life's like how I made my livelihood.
Mm.
Because I didn't
Okay.
want to lose interest and passion for it by knowing that I have to, provide for myself and family by having to constantly play. And I wasn't necessarily interested in being a teacher or a professor at a university and teaching music. And so that's kind of where how that happened. Sometimes I think about it. I would have loved to perform and travel the world because I have a huge passion for travel too. But
Mm.
this is kind of how things worked out, and um, so far it's been okay. I play what I
So,
can. Yeah,
I mean, it's turning out okay for you, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, with your passion for travel, I know recently I feel like I sound like a stalker as I say this, but I have no shame either.
It's okay.
Recently, weren't you in like Holland or something doing some kind of research or working on a surgery?
Yeah, so I was in the Netherlands. When was
Mm,
this? It was in 2022, I believe, November
okay.
2022. to do some research on colorectal surgery. We worked with a team at Radboud University in Nijmegen, Netherlands. I'm saying that wrong, but um, and so, it's been through a thing called the Balch Fellowship, So I've been,
Mm,
fortunate and throughout residency and particularly in this academic research time where I can, I was in Mexico City in November working with some
right.
surgeons there on a project. And then again, the one in Netherlands, and then I've had also opportunities to kind of travel on my own, abroad while I've had this time.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to combine some passions a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to figure out how to, put some music into this as well. I was fortunate in November 2022 as well, or October, one of the two, to perform at the AAMC, so the Association of American Medical Colleges. So they
Hmm.
are basically the organization that run all medical schools across the country, and the exams and stuff as well. So I played for their national convention, their annual meeting. And before the CEO spoke in their plenary session, they asked me to perform. So I had like a
Right.
15, 20-minute set to do that. And so that's been the one time I've been able to really combine music and medicine. And it was an incredible
Hmm.
experience. And
Okay. So do you think that your I guess experience as a musician as you grow as a physician will kind of tie into how you interact with your patients or even connect with them?
I don't know, not necessarily like music therapy or things like that. I think that
Okay.
like the discipline you learn from being a musician helps make you a better surgeon, I think,
Mm,
um I don't know how directly the music is gonna help, but it's kind of silo things. But I do
right.
think that like some of the life lessons I've gained being a musician, kind of working
Hmm.
hard,
Hmm.
staying, task oriented, working under pressure, performing in front of other people, that kind of thing. That
Right.
really plays a role in my job day to day. Um, but how am I going to combine these things? I'm still kind of figuring out a little bit.
Yeah. So that's something you have a desire to do.
I think so. I mean,
Hmm.
it'd be nice if I could spend some, travel, spend some weekends performing, doing these things.
Hmm.
But like, I don't know. It's also part about how you market yourself a little bit too.
Hmm.
I'm still in training, and so right now I'm just trying to get through residency and this PhD and all
Yeah.
this stuff. So we're gonna figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So you made a comment, right?
Hmm.
That made me think, wow, I am here giving you a lot of accolades, but
Uh-huh.
from your perspective, I imagine you may feel a lot of pressure when people make comments like I made earlier on.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. I recognize very much that I'm just a human and a person, and
Mhm.
like I've people were like, "Oh, Lawrence, you have all these degrees." We could talk about academic journey too, but you know, uh, you must love school and all these things. And it's like just some. I don't not really honestly. I feel like some of these things are
Mhm.
a means to an end where they were opportunities that fell into my lap that I thought were incredible and would open the next door, and they have. And there's to some degree a little strategic. And I've been blessed to have great mentors and
Right.
sponsors who really helped me get to the places I'm at now. But I also have a lot of I forgive myself for mistakes, and recognize that I'm not perfect, and recognize I'm not the smartest person in the room. And
Mm-hmm.
if you are, like people say, you shouldn't be in that room, right? Like you should be surrounded by
Yeah.
people who are smarter, who are going to build you up, who are going to kind of help shape who you are. I think I'm a pretty good delegator, those kind of things. Like
Hmm.
I, I started to develop some leadership skills over time, and I think that have been a product of watching others do it really well. You know,
Got it.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So I want to talk about your educational journey a little bit
yeah,
because
okay,
you've got a very, I'd say, unique experience in that you've been educated through both HBCUs and Ivy League colleges, right?
yeah,
Universities.
yeah,
So, my first question, and I am a huge advocate of the HBCU experience for any
hmm
Black person living in
hmm
America or
yeah,
even outside of America. I think
yeah, for sure,
it's unique and it's kind of a time in your life where you can just learn yourself, honestly, in a safe environment.
yeah, for sure.
So, I say that because it's my experience, but I want to
Hmm.
ask you about your experience. Did you find that or do you disagree?
No, I agree 100%. So I
Mhm.
guess I'll quickly, for your audience, so my education, I grew up in California, finished high school at Pine Forge Academy, which is a, Black boarding school in Pennsylvania. Went to college at Oakwood University, go Oakwood, and we studied music composition and recording arts and minored in
Mhm.
chemistry. I went to Meharry Medical College, which is HBCU, for a master's in health science, and then also then matriculated to the School of Medicine there. Um, Between my third and fourth years of medical school, I went to Yale to do my master's of public health, and then came back and graduated, and now at residency at Johns Hopkins. And so I'll be there for my training, which is 5 clinical years of training, and then I'm also doing a 3 years PhD in the School of Public Health at Hopkins.
Mhm.
But to answer this question more specifically, I do think that both my experiences at Oakwood and Meharry were unique. I wouldn't trade them for the world.
Right.
I think that particularly in medical school, when you are stepping into spaces with information that's really like it's a fire hose that never turns off, it's an incredible amount of information.
Hmm.
It's difficult, it's stressful, it's anxiety provoking. To be in a place where people look, think, and have similar ideas as you, who are you form community and family. Honestly, I think is really important. It's not constantly a competitive environment. Like
Hmm.
you have type A personalities, but in general, like people are really there to support each other.
Right.
And at Oakwood and Meharry, I formed lifelong friends. Who to
Hmm.
this day I can call up at any time of day and say, "Hey, I need support in this way, or I need help in this way, or I just need your advice," and they really look out. And so I think particularly, as an African American, kind of trying to navigate this country in these spaces, I think it's really, really important. Um, and like it gives you personal confidence, right? So that when you step
Right.
into PWIs and other spaces, you kind of know who you are already, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really interesting because you hear. So I went to Yale. It was a great experience. I wouldn't trade that either. But have a lot of imposter syndrome when you step into places like Yale and Hopkins and things like
Yeah.
that. And they think these must be the smartest people in the world and stuff like that. And they're really thoughtful people, but I don't think they're any more thoughtful than we are, right? Like
Right.
they come from HBCUs. I think that we belong in these spaces. We
Hmm.
succeed in these spaces, and we deserve to be there. And that's kind of what being in these environments have really taught me. Because even now, when I try to recruit for Hopkins, other places, people are like, "Well, it's Hopkins." I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's just a place.
Right.
It's a
Right.
place where you're gonna get trained and you're gonna grow, and we're gonna support you through it. And so I think having had both experiences, I can speak to it better, which has been really great.
I love that because I know Black people make up about 12, 13% of the population. But when
Yeah,
it comes to medical doctors, they're about 5%, 5.7% of
it's
physicians are
yeah, it's
Black.
low. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even have the exact numbers off the top of my head. I do know
Yeah.
that there's a study that came out that in 1978, this came out
Mhm.
a few years ago. In 1978, there were more Black males entering medical school than there were in 2014, which is when I started medical
Wow.
school.
Wow.
And I think I was one of 515
Mhm.
Black men entering medical school in 2014, and which was,
Right.
like less than 1% of all entering medical school students at that time. And so it's crazy. It's a privilege, but also
Right.
shows the disparity that we have in our country, and it doesn't reflect the populations we serve.
And I think it's so interesting because that statistic I just mentioned is from CNN, an article published about a year ago, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I think about that's all encompassing, right?
hmm
All medical doctors. But
yeah,
you are in surgery, which is
yeah,
even more specific. And I can't
yeah,
imagine. I tried to look it up. I'm still looking for like more credible sources, but
yeah.
it seems like about 1% of general surgeons are Black. And I can't even think about like plastic surgeons and like all the
hmm
other surgery that you have to do with
Subspecialty,
cardiac.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's another reason I wanted to talk to you because I'm hoping that someone can see this and be inspired. All right. So you mentioned your time at Oakwood and Meharry. What were some things that you did during that time that you feel led you to the path that you're on now?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things that was life-changing and altering for me was a program called the Institute for Responsible Citizenship.
Mm.
I spent 2 summers in the Washington, D.C. area. You don't have to be interested in medicine. It's kind of for everybody, education, law, business,
Oh,
banking, finance.
okay.
But I was one of the few who started in medicine. And so basically you spend 2 summers, you spend 8 weeks each summer shadowing. And
Mhm.
so I shadowed a spine surgeon the first summer, then another orthopedic surgeon the next summer. And so got close to like 640 hours of clinical shadowing opportunities, which is incredible
Wow.
for an undergrad. And so I developed mentors who wrote letters of recommendation for medical school, help
Hmm.
with interviews, preparation, and things like that. And that was my probably my first introduction to like that's when I confirmed my call into medicine, right? Like in the OR.
Really?
Yeah, that was when I was like,
Wow.
this is it for me.
Huh.
I'm okay with the hours, and I met mentors who were residents at that time, which was great. Um, and in medical school, I got very involved with the Student
Mm-hmm.
National Medical Association, which is
Mm-hmm.
really like it brings together all the minority medical students across the country, particularly of African descent, and it was an incredible opportunity. I led a lot of positions in that organization, and that was critical for my well being and helping
Right.
promote and recruit others as well. So. Um, I'm indebted to those organizations that kind of get to help me get to where I am today.
Is that when you decided you wanted to focus in general surgery specifically?
Not necessarily. So I guess unfortunately I've had number of family members battle with cancer, and
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother passed from. Both of my grandmothers have actually now passed from cancer. My grandfather did when I was younger, and an aunt as well. And so I knew that I wanted to work in the oncology space.
Okay.
Um, but there's a number of ways to do that. You can do it through general surgery, through orthopedic oncology, through gynonc, things like that, and I knew I want to do surgery, but also want to do
Mm-hmm.
cancer surgery. And my so I came into medical residency, sorry, thinking surgical oncology. I've now changed a little bit, and I'm interested in colorectal surgery now, because that's a
Oh, okay.
disease that now really impacts young, you know minorities and
Mm.
others across the country. It's, um, and so that's kind of where my passions lay now. And so you deal with benign amyloid disease, but that's what I'm interested in now.
I actually do have a question about this too, because you
Yeah.
mentioned minorities, right? Do you see a difference in, I guess the patients that you treat, and one, the ages when people come in and kind of realize that they have an issue with different ethnic groups?
hmm I'm not sure. I would say that, particularly so Baltimore and Johns Hopkins is in an underserved area in Baltimore,
Mm,
and what
mm,
you do find is that a lot of people come in with late stage disease,
mm,
and it might be a product of just not seeing the doctor for a while, or underinsured or uninsured, and so they don't see physicians or have access to healthcare the same way others do. And so you do see them present with late pathology, which doesn't bode well for their outcomes.
you're right.
Um, what I do see a lot, and unfortunately it's pretty difficult, is a lot of trauma in our
Mm,
communities.
mm,
Dealing with a lot of penetrating gun and knife wounds.
mm,
And it's important for us to be there, for me to be there, because they relate well. When they see us, they form trust. But it
mm,
is also hard to see young Black men die, honestly. And I think that's
mm,
and so it's just one of those things, realities of our communities, and it just shows you there's so much work to do,
mm,
both in the clinical space, but also like the public health prevention space that we need to do to try to improve, outcomes and prevent disasters.
mm. With your experience as a physician, what is one thing that you would tell people that look like you to do to improve their health?
To improve their health.
Mm,
I think that, it's I'm not the best at this, you'll find that a lot of physicians aren't the best at this, but you should you should see a physician annually. A primary
mm,
care doctors you can see annually. If you are, older on 45, 50, you should be getting your colonoscopies. As a woman, you should be doing your mammograms in the
mm,
routine time, getting pap smears, things like that. Because, prevention is the way to, catching things early is the way to live longer, honestly.
yeah.
And also when you're seeing physicians annually, you can help prevent or treat things like hypertension, diabetes, things like that,
Mm,
because ultimately like high blood pressure and diabetes leads to other things, vascular
mm,
disease and neuropathy, things like that, that you can try to prevent if you take care of yourself early on. As best as possible, I would encourage people to try to, you know, eat healthy, cut down on sugars,
yeah.
things like that. I'm working on it myself, literally. um, Exercise when you can,
Yeah.
try to stay active, try to
Mm.
dedicate those few minutes a day to doing those things. And I think that ultimately over time, over your life course, it'll have, great ramifications.
I get that because I feel like I'm just finally getting to a point where I'm like consistent on my health journey.
Yeah,
And I'm also the type of person that does not like going to the doctor. So I'm more
yeah,
asking that for myself.
yeah. No, I'm preaching to the choir. I was literally saying something to my wife yesterday. It's like I need to call
Yeah.
my physician. And then also like we I think there's a lot of stigma around mental health in our communities, and
Hmm.
finding a therapist, finding somebody to talk to,
Hmm.
recognizing that anxiety, depression, those kinds of things are real, and
Hmm.
and it's okay to get help. I think that's really important as well. Because you can't help others if you don't help yourself first, right? Like you have to be whole within
Yeah,
yourself
that's real. Yeah.
before you can try to help others.
As you started getting more education in the medical space, did you start thinking you had everything that you read about?
What do you mean?
Like, were you diagnosing yourself with things
Oh,
you,
oh, like
as you
hypochondriac.
started? Yeah.
Honestly, I wasn't that person. I do know people like
Oh,
that, but I
yeah.
actually wasn't that person. I'm like, it kind of is what it is. No, but I didn't.
Okay.
It's so funny though, like because in medical school they teach you how to take care of all these really complex things, but
Mm,
like not the common cold, right? Like they're like, oh, it's probably a virus. You just need to drink a lot of fluids and you'll be fine over
yeah.
time. And you're
Yeah.
like, man, how am I taking care of myself? Like, what am I supposed to do? I feel congested. Those things, like little things. So, but
Right. Okay.
um, yeah, I wasn't thankfully not.
Okay. I want to go back to a comment that you made because I've been really beefing you up because I think you deserve that. But also, like you said, you're human and you sound like a
Yeah.
person that has a lot of focus, and your focus has allowed you to be as successful as you are. So I
Hmm.
just want to make sure people seeing this don't feel intimidated by what
Yeah.
you've done because I see you and I just see, oh, it's possible for other people to
Yeah.
do what you've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would certainly echo that. I think that a lot of it's just like you just kind of realize you have to do it. Like
Mm,
I'm sometimes like just like anybody else. I
yeah.
I love my a good Netflix show. Just like anybody else.
What are
And
you watching on Netflix right now?
I was watching Suits a few minutes ago.
I was, it's okay.
It was my first time watching it. But
Hmm.
so those are you know I have similar interests as most people. I really care about family, friends, traveling. But I also recognize that like in order to progress in these spaces, in order to make space for others to be here, I have to be excellent. Um, and there are pressures of like the minority tax, right? Where
Right.
unlike some of my colleagues, I have to spend more time trying to focus on DEI efforts and recruiting and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to be the only one, right? And I think we do better when we reach back and pull others up with us, and I
Right.
think that's super important. And so that's what drives me. It's a passion of mine.
So that's your personal why, seeing
Yeah,
others like you in the same spaces.
yeah, yeah. And like
Yeah.
you said, the numbers are really small. Like I know a lot of like not most, but a lot of the other
Hmm.
Black men and women in surgery, and we have
Hmm.
groups and we stay in touch and we get involved in our
Hmm.
community, things like that. And so it makes it easier to kind of get through. Yeah.
What do you want to say to someone that's looking at you and says, like, oh, I want to do what he does. I want to do that.
I would just say, it's possible, right? Like
Hmm.
it's very doable.
Hmm.
Um, I think that, there are a lot of hurdles in medicine, unfortunately, in terms of like the MCAT, STEP, things like that. But I'm not a genius and I made it through, right? Like, and I
Right.
think that, hard work, grit will get you through it. Um, but also at the same time, there are lots of ways to make impact, right?
Hmm.
I think that medicine's a great avenue to do that, but
Hmm.
public health is also a great avenue, and healthcare administration is a great avenue in the healthcare space. Policy is a great avenue, and so the medicine. It's interesting. You can do public health work, but also it's like you're treating the individual patient. Whereas public health policy spaces, you're treating populations. Research
Hmm.
PhD, you're treating populations. You're coming up
Hmm.
with that novel drug or novel you find that that niche in a policy space. It's like, hey, we can improve our healthcare system if we were to think about this differently. And so that's what I would recommend.
Right.
Just not to get overwhelmed by what's in front, but just take it one test at a time, one day at
Hmm.
a time, one hour at a time. But before you know it, you've arrived. And I haven't arrived yet, right? But I'm striving toward it.
Yeah.
But you have to don't lose yourself along the way at the same time.
Right.
you have interests, you have hobbies, you should stick to it. You should, play those sports, play that instrument,
Mhm.
travel, things like that, because you're a person, right? We have one life. We
Do the
should make
things that give you joy along the way.
exactly, exactly.
That's how you
Make
make it
impact, but exactly. Make impact, and like because medicine is so much delayed gratification. That's one thing, right? Like I'm
Mm.
32 right now, and I have a job obviously, but still like my full job is I haven't gotten to it yet, right? Like
Right.
being the tending position. And so you have to enjoy things as they come, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't know. So find people who gives you good advice, but but enjoy life. Take that trip if you need to.
Take that. I'm all for taking any
Yeah,
trip that you need to take.
exactly,
You
exactly.
already know.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I also want to say congratulations because
Yeah,
you've got a baby baking, or your wife
I
has a
exactly.
baby
Wife is a
baking
baby
right now.
bakings. By the time this comes out, the baby might be here, so she's doing the 10 days. So
Oh my gosh. Okay,
yeah,
that's exciting.
it's
Congratulations.
thank you. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna be a first child, gonna be a son,
Yeah.
and so we're very very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for you
So
guys. You guys are going to be amazing parents.
thank you. I appreciate it.
So, to close it out, I have a few just random, unrelated to medicine questions for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. This is something new I'm trying. So, you're the first, you're my
Okay,
pilot. You're the first.
okay, okay. Sounds good.
So, just answer the first thing that pops in your head.
Okay.
Okay. What's a book everyone should read?
Hmm. So a book I really enjoyed was Michelle Obama's Becoming. Let me quickly, I'm gonna show you my Audible. Um, I listen to Audible. I have no time to read books, so I have to listen to them like while I drive or like between cases in the OR, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
What's the last song you listened to? How about that?
I listened to Beyonce's new song that came out last night.
Oh,
Um, the 16 carriages and whatever the other one, Texas Hold'em. I
mm-hmm.
like John Legend a lot. I think he's a very talented artist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so something that he sings probably, I think, like All of Me or something like that. I think those are great
Yeah.
songs.
And then last one. I think that this
Mhm.
one is going to be really easy.
Okay.
What's your favorite hobby?
I mean, it's easy. Yes, I guess playing the piano is my favorite hobby.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, songwriting is something that was a passion of mine, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to pick up more. I did that a lot during college, and I'm trying to pick that up a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
now. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, I put something out soon.
You got to write something for the baby.
That was I wasn't gonna say it on the podcast, but yeah, that's the plan. It's in the works right now. Hopefully,
I
to
love
put some
that.
sort of thing together and we'll
Okay.
post it.
I'm looking forward to
So
hearing it.
yeah, thanks so much. So
All right, Dr. Brown. Well, thank you so much for joining
no
us.
worries, of course. Thanks so much for the
Yeah.
invitation.
Yeah, of course. And thank you to everybody for watching. I hope you leave enlightened. Bye.